Have you ever stuck with a bad job or a relationship on life support because you couldn't face the possibility that you'd chosen the wrong path? Or maybe you've kept your head down all this time hoping things would just magically fix themselves. If that's you, welcome to the club. And you're in the right place today because in today's episode, we're talking about really seeing the writing on the wall so you can make better decisions and stop paying the high price of denial. Welcome back to Decoding Wisdom, guys. I'm Sachin Jha, blending age-old philosophies with modern insights to help both me and you get a little wiser every day. And today I want to discuss some ideas inspired by Naval Ravikant. Now, some of you may know him already, but he's a very successful entrepreneur, investor, and a modern philosopher. He's also the mind behind the very famous book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant, which I'm holding up here if you're watching this on video. I highly recommend if you guys get a chance to read this. But essentially, Naval's really known for his clear thinking on three things: wealth, happiness, and decision-making. And one of his big insights is that the more we desperately want a certain outcome to occur, the less we see reality for what it is. So we'll explore why we ignore obvious red flags sometimes and how our egos can actually set traps for ourselves, but most importantly, how to flip the script so that we can make better choices with our eyes wide open and not just buried in the sand. So let's jump right in. So first off, Naval points out that when we are really attached to a specific outcome, maybe it's a business that we really want to do well in, or a relationship that we really want to last, we conveniently filter out all the negatives. We'll see a dozen red flags and then just say, nah, mate, they're just pink flags, right? But the cold hard truth, my friend, that right there is denial dressed up in a fancy costume. And the moment reality hits, it hurts, and it hurts a lot. But ironically, that pain can be a spark of genuine change. So because you're done sugarcoating it, for once, you are actually free to make a real move. And I've always wondered, why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we keep shooting ourselves in the foot, right? Let's look at a few real-world examples that we can really relate to. And ignoring reality isn't limited to just one aspect of life. It's everywhere. Think about it. We've all had that one friend who clings on to a toxic partner. Everyone sees the issues, but them. Or maybe you're stuck in a job that's clearly going nowhere, but you say to yourself, I've been here so long now, why quit? Or if you feel sluggish every day or at work, maybe it's time for you to change your diet or exercise routine. But rather than acknowledging it, sometimes we just say, hey, I'm just too busy, and laze around. Or it's easier to blame things such as bad genetics. We all do that sometimes. And I've been there too. A while back, I poured months and possibly way too much capital into this perfect business idea, or so I thought it was. But my revenue was basically a thank you, try again note from the universe. But I told myself it was just a slow season. In hindsight, though, the only thing slow was me, ignoring the truth. So at this point, you might feel a mix of guilt and relief. Guilt because you've probably done this in the past as well, and relief because we all have. So let's bring in a little bit of wisdom to help us navigate these key moments. Seneca, who is a great philosopher, once said that we suffer more often in our own imagination than in reality. And that's what happens when we cling to these illusions instead of hard, cold facts. We imagine all the reasons why we must hold on because the alternative seems a lot more scary in our own heads. But once we face the truth, we realize it's not often half as bad as we made it out to be in the first place. So let's say if the business is tanking, or your relationship is toxic, or your job is draining your soul, it might be time to face it head on. Now, what can we do about it? How do we snap out of this denial and see things for what they are? Well, I've narrowed it down to 3 strategies that I've interpreted from Naval's book. And it's only 3 because fewer steps means fewer excuses not to try them out. So hopefully you guys give it a good shot. Strategy 1 is check your ego at the door. Leave it. Sometimes we're so tied to a situation like a failing project that we see leaving it as a personal failure. So you can ignore reality all you want, okay? But eventually, that reality check will bounce. And if you catch yourself constantly justifying or making excuses, pause and ask yourself, Am I really defending the situation, or am I just defending my ego? Which one is it? That small question right there, guys, can be a big spotlight on denial. Strategy 2, seek a reality radar, aka get honest feedback. When you're too close to a problem, it's very easy to rationalize. That's why Naval advises telling someone else, like a friend or a mentor or a coach, exactly what's going on. Think about this. Have you ever fixed your friend's relationship drama in like 5 minutes? But when it comes to your own, you struggle with your own because and you're just so sunk into it, and it takes you, let's say, 5 years to figure it out. That right there is the bias talking. So a fresh perspective can cut through your illusions in no time. But you got to find someone who can be transparent with you and who'll say, actually, mate, you're ignoring X, Y, and Z. It's time for you to wake up, right? And the third strategy is conduct a weekly audit. So once a week, pick one area of your life, whether it's career, health, or a passion project, and write down 2 columns, what's going right and what's not. If the not column keeps growing, it's time to admit that something's off. And remember Seneca's words here now. We suffer often more in our imagination than in reality. So once you stop imagining and start acknowledging it, you'll suffer less and act more. So what's the big takeaway? Well, the art of decision making is recognizing the difference between what you want and what reality is for what it is. If you feel like you're forcing a square peg into a round hole, whether that's in a job, a relationship, or a big idea, maybe it's time to have that tough conversation with yourself. And remember, as Naval points out, that we suffer most when our desires collide with reality. And as Seneca reminds us, that the worst suffering often happens in our own imagination, right here. So the sooner we face the truth, the sooner we can move on and build something really better, right? So I have a challenge for you guys. This week, do a quick reality audit on one thing that's been bugging you for a while. Ask yourself, are you ignoring any red flags there? If yes, talk it out with a mate or a friend who can give you transparent feedback. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with someone who might need a little bit of a dosage of reality as well. So thanks for hanging out with me here on Decoding Wisdom today. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're going through something where you're trying to see reality more clearly. And feel free to reach out to me on Instagram as well, at sachin.char23. A lot of you guys have asked me what's the best way to get in touch. It's Instagram. So I'll leave it in the bio down below or in the description down below. Or just comment wherever you're listening to this podcast. And remember, it's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about catching them early by seeing them for what they truly are. Until next time, keep learning, keep evolving, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Cheers.